There's a particular kind of silence that speaks louder than any insult. It's the silence you wield when someone tries to embarrass, undermine, or provoke you. And instead of giving them the reaction they want, you simply offer a look that makes their actions feel meaningless. That silence isn't born from weakness. It's power cloaked in restraint. It's the kind of mastery that Machiavelli revered, the ability to dismantle arrogance without raising a voice, let alone a hand. A rude person thrives on reaction. Deny it, and they starve. Many believe the solution to dealing with rudeness is to retaliate, to put someone in their place with a sharp comeback or an even harsher insult. But Machiavelli would caution otherwise. The moment you engage, you've given them what they sought: your attention, energy, and emotional investment. In that instant, they hold control. If there's one thing Machiavelli understood, it's that power isn't about what you say. It lies in the emotions you evoke in others. So, if you can make a rude person feel insignificant, powerless, or unworthy of your attention, you've already won. The truth most people overlook is that rudeness is rarely about you. It's a reflection of the person being rude. Their behavior stems from an attempt to assert dominance, to compensate for their own feelings of inadequacy. They mock, interrupt, or disrespect not as an act of strength, but out of fear of appearing weak. In Machiavellian terms, every insult is a test, a carefully disguised trap designed to provoke a reaction. How you respond determines whether you pass or fail. When someone provokes you, the instinctual response is often to retaliate or defend yourself. But the more tactical move is to refuse to play their game entirely. Don't meet them on the emotional ground they've set. Real power doesn't bow to every challenge. It decides which are even worth acknowledging. As Machiavelli might suggest, kings do not argue with peasants. Stooping to their level only diminishes your own authority. When you choose not to respond, their influence evaporates as they recognize how little sway they hold over you. Consider this subtle but potent tool of composure, what could be called weaponized silence. This isn't passive indifference, it's active control. It's the intentional act of withholding a reaction while maintaining an air of confident introspection. When someone insults you, you don't flinch or smirk or show any visible crack in your demeanor. Instead, you hold their gaze ever so briefly, just long enough to make them feel scrutinized, as if their outburst isn't worth anything more than quiet curiosity. That pause speaks volumes. You're not important enough to provoke me. And that realization stings more deeply than any cutting remark ever could. But mastering this composure requires something that many lack: self-respect, untethered from external validation. If your confidence is still tied to how others treat you, you'll find it impossible to stay calm when disrespect surfaces. Machiavelli's lesson here would be a simple yet profound one. Fortify your sense of self so deeply that no one else's opinion can shake it. Build your inner power first, because once your worth no longer hinges on external approval, rudeness becomes just noise, irritating, but ultimately powerless. Think about people in your life who seem insurmountable, those individuals no one dares insult, not because they're aggressive, but because they radiate an unreadable calm. Their confidence feels untouchable, and that uncertainty keeps others at bay. This is the state Machiavelli would encourage you to strive toward, the enigmatic composure that disarms without effort. When someone hurls rudeness at you and is met with nothing but calm stillness, they start doubting themselves. Did they take it too far? Did they misunderstand you? Or worse, for them, are you planning something more calculated? That lingering uncertainty is what gives you the upper hand, not through words or actions, but through mere presence. Here's the twist Machiavelli would relish most. Rude people crave control above all else. But even more terrifying to them than being ignored is being fully seen for who they are. Your silence, intentional and unyielding, exposes their own insecurity. It forces them to confront the very smallness they tried to project onto you. Because at its core, every rude comment or disrespectful jab is simply a confession of vulnerability wrapped in false bravado. Most rude individuals live in fear that others might notice this truth beneath their facade, and your composure acts as a mirror reflecting it back at them. Machiavelli would remind us that the goal isn't to win these confrontations, but to maintain control over how you're perceived. Every emotional reaction surrenders a piece of that control. Every moment of steady calm. There's an expression that aligns seamlessly with Machiavelli's worldview. Never wrestle with pigs. You both end up filthy, and the pig enjoys it. But Machiavelli would likely refine it further. Instead of walking away, he'd suggest making the pig realize there's no audience for its performance. When someone is rude, they're staging a show. By refusing to play your role, you dismantle the scene altogether. The silence you offer becomes suffocating for them, and soon they'll either escalate their provocation or retreat entirely, both outcomes working to your advantage. To make this strategy effective, however, your silence must be rooted in confidence, not timidity. People can instinctively sense the difference. If your quietness comes from fear, it invites further aggression. But if your stillness stems from poise, calculation, or sheer indifference, it becomes heavy and unsettling. That kind of silence disrupts the rude person's equilibrium, creating a psychological shift. Machiavelli referred to this as maintaining the appearance of control, even in chaos. That perceived control often commands more respect than any verbal defense ever could. Another Machiavellian tactic cleverly turns rudeness into self-sabotage, mirroring calm. If someone raises their voice, lower yours. If they interrupt, pause deliberately. If they insult you, respond slowly with a level-headed question like, "What makes you feel the need to say that?" This approach isn't about defending yourself. It's about provoking self-awareness in the other person. Few things disarm rudeness faster than forcing someone to confront their own behavior. Rude individuals feed on emotional disarray. By denying them entry into chaos, you expose their lack of composure. Machiavelli would argue that when faced with rudeness, your goal shouldn't focus solely on protecting your ego, but on shifting the power dynamic. Use subtle gestures to assert quiet dominance. Hold eye contact until they break it first. Straighten your posture slightly higher than theirs. Speak sparingly, yet deliberately slower. These understated cues send a message to their subconscious. The control lies with you. At times, silence or calm questions may not be necessary. Indifference itself becomes the weapon. If someone insults you in public, proceed as if the comment didn't register at all. That unshaken attitude infuriates them. They aim to disrupt your persona, but instead encounter an unyielding surface. Over time, they either back down or spiral into blatant insecurity. Machiavelli might describe this as letting their own vanity consume them, because few things puncture arrogance more effectively than realizing no one's paying attention. Of course, situations will arise where silence alone won't suffice, where the rude person refuses to stop. That's when Machiavelli's concept of measured retaliation comes into play. This doesn't mean acting rashly. It's about choosing the ideal moment to deliver a cutting statement that undermines them effortlessly. Your response should be calm yet incisive, not defensive but assertive. Something simple yet definitive like, "You seem disturbingly comfortable, embarrassing yourself," or "If I valued your opinion, I'd have asked." Deliver this with composure and immediately withdraw all attention. The abrupt disengagement creates an emotional whiplash. They anticipated conflict, but are instead left with emptiness and distance, which speaks volumes without raising your voice. Machiavelli understood an essential truth. Real authority isn't flamboyant, it's quiet and intentional. By making a rude person feel insignificant without even changing your tone, you wield a rare form of power. It doesn't just silence opposition, it leaves observers with no doubt about who truly commands the room. Most people falter by trying too hard to appear unaffected, forcing laughter, cracking jokes, or feigning disinterest. But performed indifference lacks teeth. True control lies in restraint that feels natural and unshakable. This is where Machiavelli's sharpest wisdom comes into play. Completely withdraw your attention. Act as though their existence holds no significance to your decisions, peace, or time. When they realize even their attempts at disrespect don't capture your gaze, it unravels them. To be unseen by someone you're trying to provoke is a far harsher blow than outright defeat. It's being erased. And deliberate forgetfulness, Machiavelli would argue, is the purest form of punishment. This isn't revenge, it's erasure. It doesn't create noise or seek validation. It simply robs the offending party of their power to disrupt your world. By doing so, you strip them of influence over yours entirely. That's how you stun them, by making them realize they were never truly part of the exchange to begin with. When you master this level of composure, it resonates. Others feel it in your presence. They weigh their words more carefully. The insolent think twice before attempting their usual strategies. You're not threatening but unreadable. And in a crowded world full of loud, uncertain voices, unreadability is profoundly unsettling. Machiavelli might call this the aura of control. It doesn't require defense. It demands only to be upheld. Every pause, every moment of calm, every measured response strengthens this intangible fortress. Once constructed, no cheap insult will reach you again. There comes a point for every self-assured person when they face an attempt to provoke, and it fails entirely. The rude remark is uttered. The air grows tense as eyes turn expectantly your way. Yet you remain still, unchanged. Perhaps you blink or tilt your head slightly, but your composure remains intact. That's when the provocateur realizes their error, not because you offered a biting retort, but because their attempt was rendered insignificant by your restraint. This psychological equilibrium is what Machiavelli sought to teach, the strength of such poise that it quietly exposes another's insecurities without uttering a word. He believed that in any confrontation, the loudest participant surrenders first. Rudeness, after all, is never a demonstration of true strength. It's a symptom of internal leakage, frustration, fear, or unresolved shame spilling over onto others. Once you recognize this dynamic, insults lose their sting. They transform from offenses into insights, clues about whatever it is the other person lacks. A jibe about your looks? Likely their own insecurities are seeping through. Constant interruptions? A cry for validation. Adopting this mindset shifts you from taking offense to reclaiming authority. Once you start observing rather than reacting, control becomes yours to wield. However, getting there requires breaking old reflexes. Many have been socially conditioned to meet disrespect with either defensiveness or outrage, both of which serve the manipulator's agenda. Defensiveness signals vulnerability. Outrage reveals a loss of composure. The Machiavellian alternative is a third path: reflection. When confronted with an insult, don't engage with it. Let your silence hold up a mirror instead. Through your calmness, they'll see what they wanted to project onto you: desperation. Rude people thrive on social momentum. They rely on public settings to bolster their antics, seeking approval or laughter from others around them. This makes silence so potent in those moments. It fragments their rhythm, exposing how choreographed and hollow their actions are. You can even push this further by observing them with quiet curiosity, like watching a child throw a tantrum in front of strangers. That small shift changes everything, making their behavior appear absurd, not just to you, but to anyone witnessing the interaction. Machiavelli would say that when you control perception, you seize control of the moment itself. Rude individuals aim to dominate the narrative, to portray you as frazzled, embarrassed, or weakened. But if your composure is unwavering, the dynamic reverses entirely. They become the one scrutinized, the one laid bare for all to see. This is why the Machiavellian does not engage in arguments. Arguments are traps. They lure you into emotional turmoil where reason no longer has ground. Instead, you observe. You allow the other person to rattle on until their words betray their own foolishness. And then, if you choose to speak at all, your composed demeanor becomes unbearable for them. You can sense it, the discomfort that grows in the silence following your stillness. That silence is not empty, it's charged with meaning. It communicates volumes without uttering a single word. It conveys, I see you, I understand you, and you no longer matter. One of Machiavelli's sharpest insights was this: revealing emotion exposes vulnerability. The rude individual studies your reactions as a predator studies prey. If you flinch, they'll strike again. But when you offer them nothing, no irritation, no sarcasm, not even a smile, they lose their compass. They become disoriented. This creates the kind of psychological trap you aim to set. You're not retaliating or fighting back. Instead, their own confusion consumes them. Let's be honest. Not everyone can maintain this level of control because many crave validation. They want others to acknowledge their strength, their rightness, their victory in an argument. But this very need is what manipulative individuals exploit. Machiavelli would call it the hunger for public triumph, and he would caution against it. Starve that hunger, and you'll become untouchable. You step off the battlefield entirely while everyone else continues to fight for applause. The beauty of this mindset is its transformative nature. Even the worst confrontations become opportunities for cultivating power. Each time someone attempts to provoke you and fails, your composure becomes stronger. Over time, it evolves into permanent armor. People notice, even if they cannot articulate it, they sense something unshakable about you. This quiet power alters how others treat you. You cease being an easy target and emerge as an enigma. Enigmas wield influence because people fear what they cannot understand. Machiavelli might argue that the most effective ruler is neither loved nor feared. It is the one who is unreadable. The unreadable person cannot be anticipated, and unpredictability forces respect. When dealing with rude individuals, unpredictability becomes your shield. They expect you to lash out or retreat, but when you do neither, they're drawn into uncertainty, a breeding ground for their own weakness. True silence, however, extends beyond words. It's emotional detachment. It's releasing the insult in the very moment it occurs, not replaying it, not carrying it forward. Letting it wither as quickly as it arose is rare, as most people cling to their wounds like trophies. Machiavelli would dismiss such behavior as a waste of mental energy better spent on building influence. Instead, let your response be your growth. Become stronger, quieter, more resolute. By the time the rude individual comprehends your response, it's already too late. In attempting to pull you down, they find themselves sinking while you transform the ground beneath into reflective glass, transparent, untouchable, and impossible to fight upon. Their aggression rebounds onto them, leaving them exposed, desperate, and, most devastatingly, irrelevant. When you achieve indifference at this level, even their presence loses significance. They are no longer an adversary, but mere background noise in the larger narrative of your life. This is the essence of Machiavellian mastery, turning every insult into a mirror, every attempt at provocation into proof of self-control, and every rude encounter into an opportunity to showcase unwavering composure. You don't engage in petty battles. Instead, you allow small minds to reveal themselves. Your energy is conserved for strategy, influence, and power. This is how you silence a rude person, not through overpowering them, but by rendering yourself impervious to their games. They lose not because you defeated them, but because you never acknowledged a conflict existed at all.